Hi, I'm Dave Epstein. Welcome to this edition of Growing Wisdom. Today I'm talking about gooseneck loosestrife, getting it out of the garden. Now, I've actually filmed most of this already. I'm just doing the introduction, and you're going to kind of look and go, part of that looks like it's earlier in the season than another part, and I've got two different tools I'm using when I remove this. So this was a two-step process. So as you look at the video, the point here is I'm using sort of a tool that digs underneath the gooseneck loosestrife and removing it. Two different tools that I use, and also about 4 weeks apart on when I'm doing the work. But the bottom line is we got to get it out of the garden. One thing I want to show you is this is why it's so bad. See how it runs? So there's your stem, that's one, and it's going to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, like at least 12 more plants. So it comes up in a colony. So that one that's right there, I got to get rid of that, because if I don't, and the one that's over there, it's going to create a really big mess. Let me show you what I mean. In terms of removing it, I like to use something like this tool. And what I do is there's another plant I don't like, lily of the valley, but what I do is I find the stem and I trace it down into the soil, and then I use my hands. Once I feel it, I loosen it with this and get under there, and then you can, kind of lift it out with your hands. But you've got to be sure you don't break that stem, because if you leave all those roots after you've loosened it, you're just going to have problems. It's just going to come back. So you really want to be sure, if you can, that you get as much of it out as you can. So here, like if I look, right, I loosened the soil, I used my hands, I got underneath. We've got a bunch of it. There's some colchicum bulbs, which I'll replant. But you can see what I'm doing. Here's another one I just pulled out, right? So I've got most of this. So this little area, I'll put those bulbs back, and we've got that free of that stuff. This is an area right by the street, so it's not a huge problem, but it could become a problem. This was all invasive stuff here, and I took it out and planted some natives. And this silly thing got in there. This is that gooseneck loosestrife, and yes, it's beautiful. It looks really nice. The white really pops and all of that, and it does well in the shade, but it does too well. This was a fifth of this size last year. So what I showed you with the way that one plant runs and creates this colony, this is what's happening. So this is why this is a terrible plant. Do not plant this plant. Remove this plant. It is awful. This is an area right by the street, so it's not a huge problem, but it could become a problem. This was all invasive stuff here, and I took it out and planted some natives. And this silly thing got in there. This is that gooseneck loosestrife, and yes, it's beautiful. It looks really nice. The white really pops and all of that, and it does well in the shade, but it does too well. This was a fifth of this size last year. So what I showed you with the way that one plant runs and creates this colony, this is what's happening. So this is why this is a terrible plant. Do not plant this plant. Remove this plant. It is awful. Here's this patch by the roadway, and I started to dig this, but you can see, look what a nightmare it is. Look at that. It just creates, first of all, it runs really long. If you get that pointy end and it's not broken, it means you got the whole plant. That's 1, 2 stalks would produce all that. So it's not good. It's not a good plant at all. I'm using this tool, if you're wondering. This is something I found. It's got a nice hook to it, nice sharp edge, and you can get under there. So that's why I like it. So if I were to pull this, it's not going to work, but by using something like this, can loosen and then use my hand, and then I can get all of that out. And so I could do this. It's not a big patch, so That's what I'm gonna have to do here. If I want to get rid of it, I got to get it out. I literally have to remove it all. All right, so about 30 minutes later, I've removed it all. We used our little tool there, and I didn't get it all, there's no way, but I got a lot of it. And you can see, look at it, it's a terrible, terrible plant. I so regret putting it here. In just a couple of years, I can't believe how much it spread. You know, I thought because it was in a really remote area, it might be okay, but shame on me. So there's the pile of it. I will not put that in the compost pile because those little root things could reestablish themselves. So I'm going to bag this up and get rid of it, or I might just let it dry out and die, so that if the roots are dead, it should be okay. So there you have it. Now that area is a lot better. The holly's a lot happier. The liriope will be a lot happier. The hostas actually show up. All right, there you have it. So if you have gooseneck loosestrife, good thing to get out of the garden. If you don't have it, do not plant it in the garden. For Growing Wisdom, I'm Dave Epstein.